Hi everyone, welcome back to A Sky Full of Stars, Orihime's Route, episode 14. And hopefully this is the last episode in Orihime's Route. So in the last episode, there was this really exciting and surprising birthday party, and they kept most of the planning away from Orihime, and Orihime has been suffering for a very long time, but in the end, the surprise paid off. So more importantly, the weather has not been cooperating with them very well. It's cloudy tonight and yesterday night, and they can't do their main objective, which is to look at the stars from the snow and from a different angle. And even though the forecast mentions that it's going to clear up pretty soon, the question is that will it clear up in time before this observation camp ends and they have to go back to Hoshinaka City? So let's find out. So for some reason, Orihime wants to be in Akito's room despite it's time for bed and everyone is back in their rooms. So Orihime's like, Orihime sighs as she enters my room, and then she sits down on the bed, which is unusually direct of her. Well, it has been a long night. Using the electric kettle, I made a cup of tea for Orihime. Well, thanks. So it's a green tea from a cheap tea bag, unfit for Orihime's lips, but she seems happy to have a warm drink. Well, if it's from Akito, then it's all good. Well, I didn't realize how late it was. And according to the clock, it is a few minutes before midnight. So, you gave me a present, and that was for White Day, but what about my actual present? Orihime held out both hands expectantly. Well, of course, I haven't forgotten. Your birthday present separate from your White Day present. So, I wonder what my birthday present is going to be. Well, such expectations are going to be hard to live up to, but I took out a wrapped birthday present. Okay, so once again, happy birthday, Orihime. Go ahead. Orihime carefully unwraps her present. And I wonder what it is. Well, it's just a normal ring, so it's not an engagement ring or anything special. I had bought it at Harbor Town without telling Orihime. And for that truly important someone, I figured it was better to give something sincere rather than contrite. And that's why I chose this. So how did you know my finger size? So how do you know it's going to fit me? Oh, so I asked Honoka about this. And then Yoshioka also, so she doesn't know, she would have asked my mother. Orihime is convinced. And at first I thought of secretly measuring her finger with a string, but I'm glad I didn't do that. So it would have been a giveaway to Orihime. Well, we were lucky that you didn't notice, and that was my biggest worry, actually. Well, I'm sure the reaction would be different no matter what. Even if Orihime's like, well, I'll try to act like it's a surprise.
そこに水を差すわけにはいきませんわ。それよりもこれはどうするべきかしら。
Orihime held out her right hand. Okay, so I want you to put it on.
左手はまだ早いですから。
So,
こちらに。
it's not a true engagement yet, so let's practice with the right hand. And I took her right hand and placed the ring on the fourth finger.
少しくすぐったいですわね。でもすごくドキドキして。
Okay, so it's done.
ありがとう。
Orihime stares, entranced at the ring on her finger. I guess rings are special to girls after all. I'm lucky to have been able to give her something so special. Oh, wait. So the time, it's
24時を過ぎてしまったわね。24時を過ぎたらシンデレラの魔法は解けてしまうのかしら。
So your birthday's over and it's going to be back to normal. Orihime touches her ring as she says that. Yeah, well it did for Cinderella, but you're the moon goddess, Orihime, so it's just starting.
今日の月の出は23時過ぎだったはずよね。
So your time begins now, Orihime. There you go, so it's just beginning. And holding Orihime's hand in one hand, I touch her with the other.
これも誕生日プレゼント？
No, it's a new day, remember? And so this is something for me. So Orihime? And he wants a kiss from her. So I press my lips to hers gently. And quietly we're all waiting for the time to pass. Some of us slept in preparation for tonight. Some went around taking pictures outside. Others chatted with friends. And there were those who could not stop themselves from checking on the observation site. It looks like some snow had fallen earlier that morning. The soft, new snow lays on top of the packed snow. And the thick snow clouds didn't seem to be clearing up at all. Time passed gently and quietly. So it is still kind of not so good for Honoka. So if I remember for Cinderella, even though the spell broke, it was just the beginning because there was one thing that was left behind, and that was the glass slippers. And so Cinderella escaped. It's like, well, I'm not the beautiful princess anymore because the spell broke. But that didn't stop the prince from going after Cinderella. It's like, well, I want to find that person who wears these glass slippers. And they were made to fit exactly on Cinderella's feet. And of course, you have the aunt and the stepsisters.
吉岡、分かっています。みんなに指示を与えないと。分かっています。限界まで観測の時間が取れるように、今のうちに帰り支度を進めるよう伝達します。秋人くん、今日の月の時間は？
Well, after 11, so it all depends on what happens before then. So the stars are visible even with the moon out, but the moonlight made conditions less than ideal. And it's barely half moon, but its mere presence would affect our stargazing. And considering the return trip, the latest we can leave has to be 11. So 11 at night or 11 in the morning. And we stopped stargazing at 11 and packed up, we will leave by 1 in the morning. Any later, we will miss out the start of Monday classes. Okay. And just as Honoka stood up to address everyone.
姫ちゃん、姫ちゃん。
So what's going on?
風が吹いてきたよ。 ですわ。やりましたわ。恵みの風ですわ。
So the wind has come, so the wind will blow away all the clouds. Overhead, the clouds are racing, and a cold wind seemed to be pushing the snow clouds aside. And this thin layer of fresh snow has also been blown away.
吉岡、伝達内容の変更ですわ。
So it looks like we can sneak in a observation event before we leave.
はい、みんなに観測の準備を。
So there's a sudden flurry of activity, and everyone came back to life and rushed to prepare. And by nightfall, everyone is waiting to head out.
見て、あんなに星が。
Okay, so it's now night, and so I also remembered that there was a final H scene for Orihime somewhere along the way, and I think it happens after Akito gives Orihime a kiss in his room. So Orihime and Akito want to do more than just kissing, and Orihime mentions that in order to do so, I have to be washed up first. So they end up going to the public bath together, and because it's late at night, there's no one else in, so anyways. So there seems to be an infinite number of stars twinkling in the sky.
あれだけ厚い雲がかかっていたのが嘘みたいね。
And in a short time, the wind had blown the clouds away. And without a cloud left in the sky, the stars are on full display.
すごい。
So even Honoka expresses astonishment.
驚いてる暇はないわよ、吉岡。ここからが本番なのですから。それでは皆さん、準備はできたでしょうか？
So enthusiastic responses come from various parts of the crowd. And we are all brimming over with energy.
こちらに来てからずっと天候に恵まれず星を見ることができませんでした。ですが見てください。この我々の願いは届きました。時間はあまり多くありませんが、充実した星見の夜にしましょう。
Okay, so I got a little fast because it's getting quite exciting, so let's see what Honoka had to say just before.
ですが見てください。この空を。
Okay.
それでは出発。
So time to go. The snow crunched beneath our feet, and we walked through the forest, which looked totally different at night. And with nothing more than red cellophane-covered flashlights, we made our way to the observation site. And how long did we walk for, I wondered? After some time, we emerged from the forest, and our field of vision expanded all at once. Okay, so here we are. At night, the snow-covered plain glowed with an, illusory light. It's nothing other than starlit reflected.
それでは皆さん、まず最初に全員で同じ星を見ましょう。
But which star should that be? The topic had been discussed so many times at the meetings. Everyone had a different opinion, and in the end, no decision had been made.
我々はムツラ星の会です。ですからやはり最初はプレアデス星団でしょう。
So, we should look at the stars that represent us, the Six Stars Club. So that's the Pleiades cluster. No one had any objections. Okay, so let's look at the origin of where we got the Six Stars Club and all those star names. So Maya for Hoshidaiichi, Taigeta for Meikou Academy, and I forgot the rest. But anyways, so using the most advanced equipment out there, Meikou Academy's Newtonian telescope, Honoka begins locating the Pleiades cluster.
こちらの導入が終わるまでは、それぞれの機材の準備を進めてください。
Okay, so you should align your equipment to that star, or that cluster. We started working individually. So, Saya?
アキト君、何？
So, could you take care of my telescope? So, I'm going to use the telescope that I got from my parents to do this. So I understood what I meant.
わかった。アキト君も頑張ってね。
Cool. I could trust Saya with my refracting telescope. Tonight, Saya is going to represent the Mikazuki Astronomy Club. So, Orihime, I'll help you too.
ありがとう。助かりますわ。
Meikou Academy had all the good equipment, but they didn't really have the requisite knowledge or skills. So they need somebody to help them adjust and position it correctly and focus it correctly. They never had a stargazing event before, so they are especially short on observation know-hows. So first, you have to align the poles. In order to use the equatorial mount, I locate the North Star.
北はあっちの方角ですから、あれが北極星よ。
Okay, so let's locate it with the finder. Using the small telescope attached to the side of the Newtonian, we found the North Star.
見つけましたわ。
Okay, I found it. Wait, show me. Orihime let me confirm that she had located the North Star.
どうかしら。
So wait, is it right? Or is there anything wrong with it? Oh yeah, so that's the one, so you're right. I made minor adjustments with the handle on the North Star that is right in the center of the cross shaft, or crosshairs. So now all of you have to do is input the coordinates of the Pleiades cluster. And once polar alignment is done, the relative coordinates of any object could be known. And with the coordinates, the advanced computerized equatorial mount would bind the Pleiades cluster for you.
プレイディス星団の座標は赤径 56.85 度、赤 24.117 度です。
I entered the coordinates that Honoka had looked up earlier. And just like that, we are done locating the Pleiades.
アイピースの倍率はこれでいいかしら。
I think so. If it doesn't look right, we can try changing it. So there are so many different ways to enjoy the view. And changing the eyepiece magnification alone would make any star look different. Okay, so let's start with you, Orihime.
私はみんなを呼んできますね。では、失礼して。
While looking through the eyepiece, Orihime adjusts the focus slowly and carefully. She turns the focusing knob until the image is perfectly clear.
見ましたわ。
And now Orihime can see it.
そうよ、これ。私はこれを待っていたの。
Orihime didn't say anything else. I left her explore the stars as she wished. And what stories are running through Orihime's head just as she looks through the Pleiades cluster, I wonder? And was she thinking about the seven sisters trying to escape Orion's grasp?
堪能しましたわ。さあ、次はあなたの番ですわよ。
So now you get to look at it, Akito-kun. Thank you. I took Orihime's place at the telescope. And before my eyes is a dazzling array of stars. And I tried looking for the seven sisters, but there are too many stars for me to pick them out. And it's not called a cluster for nothing. I'm overwhelmed by the sheer number of bright stars. Okay, I'm done.
さすがにすごかったですわね。
So it was exciting, it was great, right? Absolutely.
このまま別の天体も見たいところですが、それでは困ります。まずは全員にプレアデス星団を見せてあげないと。
So Orihime's like, well, I want to see other stars. And Honoka is like, well, we have to let other people see the Pleiades cluster first.
分かっていますわ。
Orihime gave up her spot, and we walked away from the Newtonian.
アキト君、こっちこっち。
So now, how is it doing over with Saya and Akito's telescope?
うまくできないの。手伝って。
So now Saya needs help adjusting it and getting it into position. So Saya's having some trouble locating a star, it seems. So my club president is helping her too, but it's not as easy as using an equatorial mount. Can I take a look? So what do you want to find?
M42 オリオン大星雲です。
あっちがプレアデス星団なら、こっちもすごいのを見せないと。
So we're gonna find something else that's also as interesting as the Pleiades cluster. Sai is displaying a strange form of resistance.
やはり経緯台での導入は難しいんですね。
Well, you have to do more than just input coordinates. That's why. So it's not as digital, not as, I'll say, like self-adjusting or computerized like the Newtonian telescope for Meikou. The difference between an equatorial mount and an azimuth stand is that the former followed celestial objects for you even as time passed. Okay, so there's a bit more automation involved with the equatorial mount. And as long as it's polar aligned, an equatorial mount computerized calculations allow you to keep track of your target. On the other hand, an azimuth stand is just analog, so it had to be adjusted manually. So it's just going to stay still unless someone moves it. And it's much harder than using an equatorial mount, but it embodied the basics of observational astronomy.
この辺りだと思うんですが。
And the president's still trying to find it. Wait, so where are you? We're working together to find Orion Nebula. And the location is simple enough, below the belt of Orion.
これだけ空が綺麗なら、肉眼でも確認できるのではないかしら。
Well, you're right. Well, I think I saw something cloud-like over there. So, entrusting the finder to my club president, I joined Orihime and looked up at the sky.
あれがそうなの?
So is that it? Well, you see the three stars in a vertical line, so some call them Orion's sword, and the one in the middle is Orion Nebula.
なるほど。
So only the middle star looks cloud-like, and that is Orion Nebula. And all of this can be seen with the naked eye.
本当だね。光が送ってくれたのもすごかったけど、こっちも全然負けてないよ。
And in a sense, it's kind of sad that Hikaru's missing out on all this. The stars visible in Southeast Asia are beautiful, no doubt. But the stars visible here are in no way inferior.
写真撮って光に送りたいな。
And then you should talk to Nare later. She knows a lot about this.
そうしてみるね。
So while we're talking, my club's president had managed to locate the Orion Nebula. Okay, so it's time to see something from Akito's telescope.
まずは天の川さんからどうぞ。ピントも合わせてありますので。
ありがとうございます。
So what scene lay before Saya's eyes? I wonder. Her voice conveys some idea of just how impressive it was.
すごいよ、すごいよ。
So it's amazing. So I'm sure Saya's gonna hand it over to Akito next. That's good.
次、白鳥さんどうぞ。
So, actually, you're next, Shiratori-san. So Sai's going to hand the telescope over to Orihime.
では、失礼いたします。
Orihime took Sai's place at the telescope.
あれが先ほど見たオリオン大星雲。
So they saw it with place 1 too. It was a good night, or grand night.
ですけど、全然違うわ。やはり空が違うからかしら。
So you can even see the trapezium cluster in the Orion Nebula now. The trapezium cluster is a quaternary star at the heart of the Orion Nebula. I have seen photos taken with the Hubble telescope and recall being amazed at the scale and beauty, so different from the usual night sky.
これがトラペジウム？そう、これが。
And compared to words, even seeing it just once is far more powerful. And all numbers and information are ultimately no more than mere footnotes.
やはり来てよかった。
This piece of the night sky here is unique. So the sky over Hoshinaka had its worth, of course. But sometimes it pays to have a change of scenery. So that's why they come here. And looking at all kinds of sky is bound to broaden your horizons. Okay, so after that, we went around talking to each other and looking at stars through a variety of equipment. So I'm sure there are lots of telescopes here, and they're all aimed at different stars, and they're taking turns looking at each of them. And a variety of stars have been located, and there are even repeats. But this is forgivable. As long as there is time, everyone should look at whatever they wanted to. And it's this marvelous night sky that afforded us that luxury. And we see Orihime with Akito. Orihime is lying on an insulating sheet looking up at the sky. And lying down, you can see the star gaze continuously without your neck getting tired. That's true. So by laying down, your eyes are pointed up naturally. Well, are you cold? No, so the wind is gone and that helps. The wind that had moved the clouds for us is no longer blowing. It's all thanks to that wind that we had such a clear night sky full of stars. Our fingers intertwined, and like this, we would never be apart. Well, this was past tense.
だってもう十分すぎるほど見たもの。あとはただこうしてゆっくりと。
So right above us, the night sky is packed full of stars. And as if sleeping in the embrace of the countless stars, we close our eyes.
見えるかしら、星座たちが。
Yeah, so I can see them. And combining memory with the night sky, I drew them out in my mind. And all those trips to the planetarium really helped boost my imagination. And now they can see the real thing. So actual stars instead of something that's projected from a very special telescope that's old.
オリオンやアルテミス、その他無数の神々たち。そんな神々に 人はどんな思いを重ねたのかしら。
We open our eyes slowly, and the stars look like they are falling. The story I created was erased in an instant.
以前、私はあなたに聞いたことがあったけれど。
So a question.
アキト君、あなたはどうして星を見るの？
Because I thought about them all the time. Because I made wishes upon them. And because I just had to know, peering day after day into my telescope, what is happening on the other side of the stars. Well, I think about it sometimes, ever since the day you asked. So, why did I look at the stars? I knew how I got started, but I don't know the reason. But there's a simple explanation. So, I like the stars. Even when I stopped looking at them, I could not throw it all away. And I look at them because I like them. It is straightforward as that. And under the night sky, I felt sentiments like that could be excused.
好きだからですか。好きの形は人それぞれ。私自身、星のことを知るたびに変わっていったわ。その根底にあるものは、やはりあなたと同じ好きという気持ちにあると思うの。
So you know, the same feelings apply to me. I like them too, and I can't really explain. And I just feel it.
でも、きっと以前の私では気づかなかったのでしょうね。私は恋を知ったから。
Falling in love had made Orihime understand the meaning of liking something. Perhaps it's just a feeling. But it's undoubtedly correct.
恋を知って愛に気づいて、そして人は変わっていく。お母様が言っていたわ。女の子は恋をするべきよって。それがどういうことなのか、私はずっと理解できませんでした。でも今この星の下で、人が星を思うように、私はあなたに恋しています。
Orihime's confession is so clear as moonlight. Under the stars, her words made their way into my heart gently and quietly.
こうしていると本当に星が降ってくるみたい。
Yeah, they do. I squeezed her hand, and the infinite expanse of the universe made me feel anxious sometimes. But now... Well, I love you too, Orihime.
ありがとう。
And I lay there for a while, feeling Orihime's warmth. And I want to be wrapped up in that night sky.
あ、見て。
So, what do you see now? Wait, a shooting star.
いいえ、違うわ。雪よ。
Okay, so snow. And as if heralding the end of the dreamlike moment, snow starts to fall. And it's like, well, this is kind of like a special moment, so now that we're together, we're talking about our feelings, the snow's kind of like a decoration or a commemoration of us being together. After a while, I couldn't distinguish the snowflakes from the stars.
あともう少しだけこのままで。星と雪の共演なんてめったに見られないもの。
That's true. And there is no sign of any snow clouds. But I knew that this miracle is only momentary. And that's why I remained silent. And even without words, our minds are one. And the snow felt cold against my cheek, and the warmth of Orihime's hand pulsed gently.
アキト君、
Yes?
私を連れてきてくれてありがとう。やはりあの時感じた運命は間違っていなかったわ。あなたは私にとって導きの星でした。そしてこれからもずっとあなたと私が互いの運命でありますように。
The stars fall, and the snow falls too that night. They overlap, but they will never become one. And while trying to outshine the other, they gently rain down on us. Well, it's okay. As long as we're together, we'll be okay.
そうね。
And the miraculous night ended just as it had begun, in silence. And what Orihime and I had said to each other seemed like a dream. But I would never forget those words. And those words from the special night, a night with just the two of us. Okay, so this is the credits, and as before, I'm going to just skip the credits, and we'll see the epilogue for Orihime's route, and how her route ends with Akito. So, hold on for a minute. The seasons change, and spring is here. Okay, so we're now in the epilogue for Orihime's route, and that was a pretty romantic moment at the end when Orihime and Akito are together, holding hands, looking at the sky, and snow falling. So anyways, so after graduating, Orihime will no longer be found in the astronomy club room at Meikou Academy, and I'm now second year at Hoshidaiichi. Our astronomy club is still unpopular, but thanks to the planetarium event, the other schools' clubs had new members apparently. So even at Hoshidaiichi, a somewhat strange girl knocked on the door of the astronomy club. Holding her phone in one hand, she had a serious look on her face. So I wonder who this person is. Well, I don't know how to describe it exactly, but she seems complicated.
この度、キー天文部におきまして、新入部員を迎えたと聞き及びました。
So at least, Akito's club got one new member.
つきましては、ぜひともご紹介いただきたく筆を取らせていただいた次第です。ご多忙の中、誠に恐れ入りますが、何卒よろしくお願い申し上げます。
For phone texts, her style is far too stuffy, so she writes too much, even though it's quite elegant and polite. That usually meant that something is up. From experience, I could say that with absolute certainty. So what's going on? Well, what's the meaning of this?
文章の通りですわ。
I confronted her as she relaxed under the kotatsu, but she dodged the question. Hey, so couldn't you just have asked me in person? So it turns out that while Orihime was texting Akito, she was already in Akito's room, in the kotatsu, relaxing.
言っても私の望みを叶えてくれないくせに。
Well, of course, but I can't let an alumna gawk at the new members. Even so, what if they get scared and leave?
私、怖い？
Well, Orihime is the last person I would think is scary. I'm sure when Orihime shows up, that new member is going to go like, wow, so a beautiful person show up, and she'll spend all her time talking to Orihime. Well, in a sense, yes.
吉岡にも言われたわ。重すぎて怖いって。
But I'm sure for people who know Orihime very well, it's like, well, I think you can't be scary because you're going to be so involved in all those dialogues about the astronomy, the myths, the stories behind it, and it's going to zone people out. And from what I heard, Orihime would ask to meet each new member as soon as they signed up. However, you look at it, she's a bothersome ex-member. Well, you got to meet Corona. Is that enough?
メローペはすでにお友達ですわ。
But back then, Orihime was still a club member or the club president for Meikou Academy, so Corona had entered Meikou Academy and is no longer Merope, but Orihime still uses her old name sometimes. Well, please stop this nonsense.
吉岡ったらひどいのよ。こっそり作っておいた合鍵を没収するんだもの。
So now that she's president, she's kind of getting dominant and she won't let me in some cases. And that's why she took away my key. Well, you went that far, did you? So, before you handed the master key to Honoka, you made a copy so that if you're interested or you have some curiosity, you would go back to the Meikou Academy Astronomy Club room and see what's going on. She has said that she will not show up at the room after graduating, but as usual, you had to keep your guard up with Orihime.
みんなの動向が気になってたまらないお年頃なのよ。
Say, well, why don't you be like the previous presidents? So once they graduated, they left the astronomy club for good, and now they're probably out doing something that's not related to astronomy. She says this even though she should already know about the club's activities from not only me but Honoka and Corona too. Well, more importantly, how are you doing?
私？そうね。ひとまず演劇部というものに入ってみたわ。
So in college, I'm trying out the drama club.
お母様のようには無理かもしれませんけれど、やはり演技の勉強はしておくべきかと思いまして。
So I'm going to try something new. So try to act like my mother.
演劇というものもなかなか興味深いものね。日々楽しく過ごしておりますわ。
Orihime's new life is completely different. Well, of course, she hadn't abandoned astronomy, but is somehow straddling the two clubs. Oh, and I have not heard from Honoka lately. So why didn't you tell me about the modeling job? Well, I don't know how it happened, but Orihime is working as a part-time model.
最初はそんなつもりなかったのよ。でも演劇部の先輩がどうしてもって。
And you couldn't refuse, huh? So the other people were like pushing you, like, come on, you look beautiful. Why don't you go to modeling? Why don't you get your face featured in some magazine or such?
ごめんなさい。怒っていますか？
Well, no, I'm not upset. Well, I'm just being sulky. And my Orihime is on the way to becoming everyone's Orihime. So Orihime has been princess. Well, I knew it was going to happen. And I just didn't think it would happen this soon. But the world could not ignore Orihime's beauty. The work she did as a stand-up in model got great reviews, so she's asked to do another job, and that's where we are. So okay, why don't you get featured on this? And oh, that's great, so how about this one? And it's pretty much become a part-time job for Orihime. So just start one and another one picks up.
でも安心してください。グラビアの仕事はお断りしていますわ。人前で水着になるなんてとても耐えられませんもの。
Well, there's some outfits that I don't want to go into. Well, I can't stand either. And it is good to see her virtues remain the same. I felt relieved that she is not comfortable showing herself to others. And her mother had taken a considerable number of pin-up shots in swimsuits though, so this is her own way of thinking.
肌を見せるのは恋人に対してだけですわ。
Yes, I know that. So we're both busy with our new lives, but we actively made time to meet. It's almost refreshing to meet up for a change of pace.
アキトくん、この後ご予定は？
So what's next? So I don't have to work, so I'm free.
ならちょうどいいですわ。今夜は新月なんです。きっと星も夜空で美しく輝くことでしょう。
So stargazing. Okay.
その顔、決まりですわね。ですが、素晴らしい星空を私たち二人だけで独り占めするなんて実にもったいない話です。今から全員に声をかけてみます。むつら星の会突発官房会ですわ。
Okay, so Orihime's even more active than before. It may have been a bit over the top, but she had found her dream and is heading straight for it. And now that she is an alumna of the Six Stars Club, she's eagerly reaching out to other alumni, apparently. So she's talking to the previous president and such.
私も参加しろって？
And she goes to Miharu-san, the was teacher.
よろしくお願いしますわ。
Please.
あんたもたまには言っといで。外に出て人と会えばちっとは働き気にもなるだろう。
素敵な男性をご紹介しますわよ。
So, if you go with me, maybe I'll bring you out from this sorrow life. I'll introduce you to some nice guys who might want you. So, I'm sure Mother Satomi will be happy about this.
よし、乗った。
Okay, I'll do it. As usual, she only cares about the benefits. On the other hand, you always know exactly how to motivate her. Even while in transit on the bus, Orihime kept sending out text messages at a dizzying pace. So what is she doing?
加納さんと神野さんもいらっしゃるそうですわ。
Well, then we can invite Take then. Thanks to Orihime's efforts, Takeichi had finally been about to go out with Naru. He had been a little overexcited when he told me that as long as he's happy, I'm okay with it. So he got off the bus in front of Meikou Academy, and with obvious familiarity, Orihime heads straight for the astronomy club room. She walks gracefully, of course. So maybe I should go and surprise the new members, and Honoka and actually Yoshioka and Corona. And you never get the sense that she is in a hurry. It's enchanting to watch.
吉岡、準備はできていますか？あ、姫ちゃんだ、久しぶり。
So, hello, Hime-chan.
コロナさん、我が妹よ。
And they embrace like long lost friends. And I'm sure Corona enjoys it.
おっぱい苦しい。
Except for the fact that Orihime's body is, well, her breasts are too big.
ごめんなさい、つい興奮してしまいましたわ。
I'm sorry, I got carried away.
もう、
Well, it's always like this anyways. And just as Orihime had once, Corona is wearing the Meikou Academy uniform. So you look good in that uniform, Corona.
ありがとう、アキニ。それ、今月に入ってから何回目ですか？
So how many times have you snuck into this club this last month?
確か15回目だよ。じゃなかった。15回目のはずです、部長。
So it's 15 or okay, so 15 or 16 or even more. Kuro's education seems to be going well. And thanks to Honoka's instructions, Honoka is starting to speak properly.
よしよし。よくできました。
Okay, that's good.
ありがとう、部長。
Honoka pats Corona on the head. She seems comfortable handing her now, or handling.
私のメローペが吉岡のなでなでに。
So now you've went over to Yoshioka.
もうメローペじゃありません。彼女は我が名工学院の天文部員。つまり、大下駄のコロナです。そういうことなの。ごめんね、姫ちゃん。いえ、謝る必要はありませんわ。私は所詮過去の人間ですもの。
So I'm stuck in the past, right?
それよりも一つお聞きしたいことがありますの。
And just when I thought she is going to sulk, Orihime suddenly switches gears and went in for the kill.
何かな？
So what is it?
実はコロナさんのご友人が天文部に入部したと小耳に挟みましたの。ひなみんのことだよね。アキ兄の後輩になったみたいだよ。
Oh, so you mean Hinami, who was the one who joined Akini's club, right?
本日の官房会にご招待できないかしら。ちょっとコロナの口からは言えないかな。
Well, I think it's better if Akini asks her because he's her president of the club. Kara notices Honoka and I glaring at her from behind, and then she fell silent.
貴重な新入部員に圧力をかけるのはやめてください。その言葉、そっくりお返ししますわ。
Well, yeah, I have to say, that did sound a little pressuring.
どうしてそんなに私と合わせないようにしますの？いいじゃありませんか、一度くらい。
But then again, Hinami is a fan of Saya, so... Hinami worships Saya as the Iberia princess and sometimes gets into fights with Corona, who supports Orihime.
ひなみもちょっと趣味悪いよね。姫ちゃんより天の川さやがいいなんて。
Well, if all that does not bother me, I could try inviting her.
全く問題ありませんわ。
It is trivial to Orihime apparently. If Saya comes, Hinami would gladly come too.
さて、おしゃべりしている暇などありませんわ。
But it might lead to a conflict between Corona and Saya.
吉岡、準備はできていて？もちろんです。間もなく出発できます。
And while we chatted, Honoka had put everything in order. All we had to do is gather the equipment and put the telescopes in its case, and we're good to go. Orihime grabs the telescope and is about to run off. So we gotta protect it, we gotta put it in the case. Well, let's go anyways. Hugging the telescope with one arm, Orihime held out the other. Honoka hurriedly grabbed the equipment and tried to keep up. Corona runs over to help Honoka. Hey, you haven't changed one bit. So, is it bad? Wait, don't be silly. So, you're not a student anymore, or like you're in college now, so you should look more college-like. Well, I'm your boyfriend. Of course I like it. So, at least that's what makes you special and charming. She wants to see the stars, so she grabs the telescope and runs. How many years has passed since that day? Orihime is not the only one who didn't change. I'm the same too. Honoka, so what happened first? Thanks for handling everything. I took Orihime's hand and followed her, she would always be my guiding star. But just like a binary star, I'm also guiding Orihime.
さあ、今夜は一体どんな星空が見られるかしら。
When night falls, there will be a large gathering of astronomy fans, surely. And that's because Orihime had called every single one of them. And just as she revived the Six Stars Club, she's now the center of a growing circle of people who love the stars. But Orihime's dream did not stop there. She wanted even more people to look at the beauty of the stars.
行きましょう。私たちの星空に。
And it's the invitation to our galactic journey. I want to follow her wherever she goes. And I'm sure that Orihime could take us to the far side of the Milky Way.
では、出発進行。
The end. The end of Orihime's route in a sky full of stars. Okay, so we're back on the title screen, and given that this is the last route that I've completed, you can see that the background has changed. So instead of a stationary background, we see a moving background with meteors. So you can also tell that, so since Orihime was the last route that I completed, she was also my personal favorite character. And the reason why is that, well, in a sense, you can kind of see that it's like Akito being this lucky person who gets called upon or admired upon by someone who has a lot of status, who's rich, has lots of dreams and potentials. But at the same time, you can kind of see that, well, Orihime is this really rich girl. She's beautiful, she has a nice body, and she's using all these advantages to win Akito over. And it's kind of unfair compared to some of the other people, like, well, Hikari, Corona, and Saya. So, at the same time for me, I kind of feel like, well, out of everybody that Orihime can be with, given her status, she wants to be with Akito. And it's kind of like she found something special in Akito, despite him being very primitive. So, he lives in the club room on a tight budget. He works at the Satomi Sunbike convenience store and goes to an okay school. And you can tell from the very beginning when Akito first met Orihime, when she was setting up the Six Stars Club, and when he tried to bail out quickly, it didn't stop Orihime, and she really tried to convince Akito to stay. And even though he vowed to himself that he's going to opt out for good, it didn't happen, and I think it was just too hard for him to deny it. And for Orihime, she could see something special in Akito's eyes. It's like, well, I'm sure this guy has seen the stars, and he has this really big dream of being with the stars, and that is the person that Orihime wanted. So, there are many people who confess to Orihime at Meikou Academy. I'm sure they're rich as well, but they just didn't fit Orihime's type because, well, I'm sure none of these guys like the stars compared to Akito. And Orihime, so her voice actress also plays Yu Arisu from Amaterasu Rail Star. And she's kind of similar to her, so they both like the stars, they both have all these dreams and illusions and stories, and they both want the main character to follow their dreams or be with them. So Yua trying to get Takuya to be imaginative, to basically think in terms of fantasy. It's like, well, not everything in life is all practicality. Not everything in life is based on equations, science, and such. And like Orihime, Yu was also a really beautiful girl. And if you remember from Amaterasu Rail Star, Yu was #1 for guys who they want to make their wife. And in the common route, there's often parts where the other guys were so jealous that, I can't believe the main character, Takaya, you're with Yua. And every time Yua tries to be all close and intimate with Takaya, it makes the other people upset and angry. So anyways, now that I'm done with A Sky Full of Stars, I'm not going to do the fan disc yet because that's not translated and not localized by one novel yet. And I know there's a special disc after this, Interstellar Focus, that focuses on a summer adventure with Hikari and Saya. And I won't do that yet either. But I'm actually going to take a break from pull-top titles and look at other titles out there. And if you haven't done so, you can go see how it goes for the other routes. So Hikari, Saya, and Korona's route. So with that in mind, I'll see you in a future playthrough on a future visual novel.